One thing that's true for all moms, we have a lot of stories to tell. Some are silly, some are gross, some bring us to tears. With each story that's shared, another mom feels a little less alone. So join us as we laugh, learn, and grow together. It's the iMom Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the iMom Podcast. I'm Abby with Susan and Chloe and Megan. One of the other ladies in our office who had a baby 2 months after Chloe did, right? 2 months-ish, maybe. She approached Chloe after our New Year, New Mom episode, and she thanked Chloe, if I'm hearing it correctly, right? Yeah. Didn't she thank you for what you said? Because she was in the stage that you had talked about on the episode. So as she was listening, she's like, oh my gosh, I felt like you were talking about what I was going through, right? And I just love that because while Chloe had only been a mom for few months at the time, like 3 months, she was still able to look back at where she'd been and talk about what she'd learned and show herself some grace and then offer a word of love and wisdom to moms who are there now. So in today's episode, I just want to talk about what we would say to ourselves if we had a chance to talk to the mom that we were a stage ago or maybe several stages ago. So my first question is, what would you say, anybody here, to your pre-baby self, like pre-pregnancy, about how kids would change your marriage?
Live it up. No, I love having kids.
By the way,
Megan loves being a mom.
What would you say about how it's going to change your marriage?
I think we've talked about this in another episode, but I think getting married is a refining point. You go from just thinking about yourself to having to consider a spouse, but kids is like the super fun. You just learn that you learn to give more, you learn to sacrifice more. You love it, but it is letting go of, being selfish for sure.
I don't know. It brought a whole group of challenges that Trent and I have never faced before, and it's also invited a whole another level of love for Trent that I didn't have before. So it's in some ways it's a lot harder, but in a lot of ways I love him more than I thought I could.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like in the same way that what I love about it is that like we're a team. I'm like, it's us two against them two. So in the same way that I feel like it's like united us, it's also been a little bit divisive in that we have had to learn to parent as a team instead of parenting how we think that we individually should parent.
Yeah. So like if you kick him a child, like and he doesn't score a goal, you're mad at your teammate. Like
I'll set you up. I just gave you the perfect pass.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not really kick
we'll
a child
look at each
pass.
other and we'll just be like the little.
Yeah. I think I would tell the pre-baby me to find the ways that you are committed to like investing in your relationship, because once you have kids, they naturally just pull you away from one another, like physically. So how are you going to commit to that other person and to really investing in your marriage once kids come along? Because you got to be intentional about it, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So what about the phase you were just in last? So,
I actually haven't, because this was I was just in the newborn phase. But A, like your hair will stop falling out. So don't freak out. Like, don't think you're going to go bald. B, like, I think it takes, for me at least, it took almost, I think like a whole year for my hormones to go back and like balance out and reset. And then like, I think it takes almost like a full 2 years for you to kind of feel back to your normal. I mean, you'll never feel back to like the person you used to be, but you feel back like your normal self. So like, be patient with yourself. Don't feel like, which I hate when people say like, be patient with yourself. But it takes a full year for I think your hormones to go back, and then 2 years for you to feel like, oh, I'm back to, what I feel like is my normal self now.
Yeah. That's good.
Chloe, do you have any?
The newborn phase, gosh. Hold on tight, sis. Like, I mean, it just felt like a blur. I mean, it really did. I just was like, I don't know, blacked out all the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, and the whole, like, it goes by fast. I will say, like, at 6 months, I don't feel like it's gone by fast necessarily, but I do look at James and I'm like, when did you learn how to do that? It's crazy.
Well, the stage I just left was parenting all of them. I would say, try to, for me with 5 kids and they were all teenagers at one time, things just happened really fast. And I would say try to erase the blur. If things are moving so that you can't remember what you did last week, try to focus on just those important moments. And I'm really bad. I'm not a journaler, but I wish I had because my kids will be talking all the time and they'll talk about, remember when this happened?
Yeah.
I'm like, was I there? I don't remember.
Same.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was saying. Like, I feel like I've always been a very like reflective and like introspective person. Like I think about things a lot. And I love to journal. I don't do that the way I used to. And, you saying that, I'm like, gosh, it's such a good reminder to me.
I think, I just finished, or I'm wrapping up elementary school. So I have a 5th grader and a 6th grader. And I think if I was going to tell the Abby of the phase I just finished, anything, I would say play with toys more with them, because
This is targeted at me.
well,
we talked about that.
We have a 3-bedroom house. My boys share a gigantic bedroom. And so the 3rd bedroom it was their playroom. It is their playroom. And I use it to work out. And so I'm in there way more often than they are. And I look at like the cubbies on the wall that have all their toys in it. And I haven't gotten rid of them yet, but there's like dinosaurs in one. There's another one that has Legos.
That's so sad.
And I'm like, they don't play with them anymore. Like they are now either outside shooting the basketball or playing a video game like on their tablet or fighting with one another, They don't play with toys anymore. Yeah. And I'm like, gosh, I miss the dinosaurs. That's kind of why we still do Dinovember, which, every night during November, the dinosaurs come out and do something.
They play around.
And they play. Yeah, I do that because I just want them to hold on to some type of playfulness, so I'll never dump the dinos. But, and I think I'd also say kind of what we were just talking about, Chloe and Susan, I wish I would have written more down. I would tell her, write down more of the funny things they say, just record more of it because you will not remember.
Yeah.
Memory really stinks and you just won't remember all of it.
Yeah.
So write it down. Would you give warnings to yourself from before?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe I just can't think of anything right now, but I feel like all of it was a growing experience, and a lot of it was hard, but it was good experiences that I feel like really shifted my perspective or taught me something or helped me be more resilient or whatever it might be. And so I don't feel like I would take those away or warn myself because they were big growth points. Like I think I disliked the newborn phase so much is because I had 2 high-risk pregnancies and then both my kids had to have surgery as newborns. And so that was like, it was just like a bad dream. But at the same time, it made me realize that like, I've never relied on the Lord more to get me and my kids through it. But also, it made me realize like, okay, if I can get through that, those points are going to come and go. But like, I learned like I can make it through it because when it comes to your kids, like there's nothing. I will never forget being in the NICU and, what is it called? It's like the pediatric, post-op area, and you see some of these kids that are terminally sick and they have literally moved in and they have rooms and like their parents are in there, and you just realize like they may never leave. And so like seeing your kids in there, it just makes you so grateful. Like I was like, thank God I get to leave in like a day. But then you see these families and you're just like that. Seeing a sick child is the worst thing on the planet. So that's just really made me super grateful, but then also helped me grow and realize like I can get through this. So I don't think I would take anything away from that.
I don't know if it's a warning, but maybe like an encouragement to myself before I had James, because I know we did a podcast on like, I thought I would be afraid of getting pregnant because my body would change. And like, I can't speak for everybody who's had an eating disorder, but like, I mean, the entire journey of being pregnant and seeing my body change and everything my body is capable of and everything it did, I mean, it healed me in a way that I could have never even imagined. I do not think of my body the same. I don't even think of my body anymore, like, period.
You don't have time.
It really did. The things I was afraid of not only didn't happen, but like so many amazing things happen with my relationship with my body.
Well, I think that is partially because you and I have talked before about looking at our body not as an ornament, but as functional, like
Yeah.
not what it looks like, but what it does.
What it does. Yep.
And up until you having children, what it does was kind of related to what you did, what you made it do.
Yeah.
So like, gosh, look, I can run a marathon.
Yeah.
My body can run a marathon because I trained
did
it to
yeah.
do it. Or I can do like a really great squat, or I can, and whatever it is, like all the things that you've actually worked to be able to do.
Yeah.
Whereas with pregnancy and having a child, you didn't really.
I just
You
do
grew
it.
an eyeball.
Yeah.
One of my friends came up to me. She's like, "You're pregnant. Did you? Maybe you grew an eyeball today?" And I was like, "That is a really weird thought."
I love that. Susan, what about you? So if you could like go back and warn a younger mom version of you about something that was to come, would you? And what would it be?
Yeah, I would say try not to, as best you can, make mountains out of molehills, because you waste energy and anxiety, and it robs the joy of motherhood. I think so many things I learned after a couple kids was like, oh, that's not important. I'm not going to give any time to that. And it frees you up to really focus on the things that are important, like their relationship with you, and not at the end of the day, whether they made an A in their spelling test.
I think if I could go back and warn the previous me of anything, it would be that the fighting is going to get really bad. Like we're at the point where they are fighting a lot. And what I would tell her is, they're going to start fighting a lot. You thought that maybe they weren't, but they are. And so now work on building their friendship, really invest in helping them like each other and enjoy being around each other, because in a little while, things are going to get rough.
Yeah.
It's very rough. So we are all right now younger versions of our future selves, right? Down the road, Chloe, you're going to be a toddler mom. You're going to be a teenage mom. So now you are the younger version of that. And same goes for everybody. Do you ever think that you know the wise thing? Like maybe future you has spoken this into your brain. And you're like, I know what to do, but you resist doing it because it's hard or because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, probably just not making mountains out of molehills. I feel like that's the thing. It's like I can see ahead. Like I have the option to either worry or trust. And if I choose worry, it usually leads to more worry and then panic and the whole thing.
I just know like one of my sons, there was a day he went into school without a special backpack that he needed for a field trip. This backpack had a change of clothes, a change of shoes because they were going to get wet. He walked away without the backpack. And my older son grabbed it and was like, I'm going to let him go into the classroom without it. And then I'll bring it to him and I'll save the day. And I was like, no, because he's that feeling that he's going to have, like his heart is going to drop when he knows that I'm gone, his bag is gone. He's going to have like a moment. And I did not want him to feel that. I didn't want him to feel that panic and that discomfort. And so I made my older son, I'm like, go run up there and make sure you give it to him before he realizes he forgot it. And so like future me is going, Abby, let him experience that discomfort. Let him have that pit in his stomach for a second. And so that he can remember, hey, you got to be responsible for your stuff. So it's like that, knowing what I need to do versus how hard it is to do. That's just really tricky, I think.
Yeah.
I can't think of a specific kid situation, but I feel like there's always things that I'm working on and I'm like, oh, I know I shouldn't do that, or I know I shouldn't overreact to like them spilling this or whatever. It's just sometimes it's hard to control those emotions in the moment.
I think sometimes we see our kids as kids forever. For too long. And what we don't realize, and I panicked about this, is all of a sudden you're taking them to college and you're like, whoa, wait, did I teach them how to change a tire? Did I teach them how to do this? And then I have to tell you, as an employer, you hire kids out of college, and a lot of times their parents have not taught them how to be adults. And so I think if that's just one thing, we know we need to teach our kids to be independent. We just put it off. We see them as kids instead of taking that opportunity to teach them to be independent.
Yeah. So staying on the topic of the theme of the episode, what you would say to your younger self is like, what do I want my child to know now that I should have started working on before? And so like now when we're in this stage, you're like, okay, what do I need to be doing right now that's going to set my child up to be healthy in the next stage.
And I think I love those articles in iMom. I think there's a bunch of them, like 10 things every 10-year-old, your 10-year-old child needs to know, and 13 things your 13-year-old child.
Yeah.
Because if we kind of had that list, we'd be like, okay, they know that, because that is ultimately our goal, is to teach them to be adults.
Yeah.
Well, and I think I'm so guilty of either I'm in a rush, and so like I don't want my oldest to dress himself because I know it's going to take a century for him to get his socks and shoes on or whatever, but he like really wants to do it himself, and he really wants to make his breakfast in the morning. And I just don't want him to, because I'm afraid he's going to break something, or it's going to take forever, or whatever it might be. But my husband's really good about being like, no, you need to let him. He wants to do it, and he feels like he can do it. Let him try it, and let him just do it. And then like the other day he was riding a bike, and I was like, oh my gosh, he can do it. Like he can do it by himself. And I didn't realize.
We forget, in the industrial area, kids started going to work at like 8 years old.
Send them off with their lunchbox.
Truly.
They're hard to have.
You're so right.
Yeah. My older son rode his bike to Walgreens the other day for the first time by himself. So it's less than a mile away. But he was like, I'm bored, Mom. What do I do? I was like, why don't you go for a bike ride? He's like, just around the neighborhood. And I was like, well, or you can go like to here. And then I said, or you can take some money out of my wallet and go ride to Walgreens and get some candy. And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, you and I just rode right past there yesterday. And he's like, but you were with me. I said, but you rode in front of me. So just pretend like I'm behind you. And then he convinced himself to do it. And he's pedaling away. And I could hear him saying, I can't believe I'm doing this. Why am I doing this? And then he goes, because it's too late to turn back now. And he just pedaled off. And I gave him my phone. He called me from Walgreens and called me on my husband's phone. And I was like, are you going to walk around the store with me on the phone the whole time? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, bye. And then 2 minutes later, he's home. And I was like, well, that was fast. Like he made record time, because I think he was glad he was doing it, but he wanted it to be over with. Yeah. So yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So how do you think that moms can hold on to the things that we're learning as we journey through motherhood? We talked about journaling, taking some notes, but what are some other ways that we can just learn as we go?
One thing I've done before, and I still do, is I have, a prayer list and just, writing down those things that I see in their life, like, they might need to learn that. I see this developing, and praying about it. Because if you pray about it every day, every morning, then you think about it during the day. And then when you see it happen, you're more willing to stop and maybe teach that, because it's, the Holy Spirit's kind of prompted you that this could be a potential problem in the future.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Trent and I, at the end of the day, try to ask each other, like, what was your favorite thing you saw James do today? We don't get to do it every night, but we try to. I also ask him, what's your favorite thing that I did today?
Enough about James. Talk about me.
He's like,
So what would you say to your younger self? We would love to hear from you either through Facebook or Instagram, and you can find links to both of those in our show notes. And thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the iMom podcast. iMom is the motherhood program of the nonprofit organization Family First. Along with our fatherhood program, All Pro Dad, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the iMom Minute, by going to imom.com/subscribe and get tons of great ideas, insight, and inspiration. The iMom podcast is hosted by me, Abby Watts, along with Susan Merrill, Megan Tigner, and Chloe Blumenthal.